All right, so for those of you joining me live, thank you. I know I'm a few minutes early. I appreciate the three of you that are already watching. What we're going to do here is go over the Atlas model and compare it to the new Scale Trans Rivet Counter model. Now, being that it's released in the Rivet Counter line, I assume that sometime in the near future they're going to probably release that in the Operator series. Something that hasn't been done in quite a while is kind of a more budget friendly system here. Hey Nate's Trains, how are we doing? Thanks for joining me. So everything that's been released from Intermountain or Atlas or otherwise since Walthers last released these back in the early 2000s, everything's been super detailed. So we could really use a budget model for those who really want to beef up their auto trains. Now, to compare the Walthers version, this is what they came looking like. So very basic. They had some nice details applied to the bottom. And this is a Proto 2000 model. This is not the Walthers Gold Line series. So you had a nice die-cast frame that had a good amount of weight. You had nice metal wheels, appropriate sized trucks, and you had the Protomax couplers. Otherwise, you had the larger KD style or McHenrys that came on the earlier versions. Now, the earlier versions of this yet that were the Walthers Gold Line would have had cast-in steps. I don't have any of those ready at hand, but they had a large variety of road names. They had different paint schemes, and obviously this is an older style Autorack. This is a little bit closer to what Intermountain has released, and obviously those are much more detailed. You can see through it, the doors open on the ends, etc. And this we can see as a bi-level. So we're not really going to compare this too much to these, just because these are so out of date now compared to the new products that have been released by Atlas and Scale Trains and Intermountain. But this is a good reference for what the market has provided with us to date. All right. So you've still got your nice little hand applied steps here. Like that's actually wire. That's not plastic, which is nice. But you don't have a whole lot of detail on the ends. Not that there's a lot to be had, but you don't have the MU hoses. In fact, I have yet to see a proto model with the MU hoses on it. So you got another minute or so here before. Oh, no, it's time. All right, so thank you for joining me in my first YouTube live session going head to head with the Scale Trains Rivet Counter Autoracks versus Atlas. Okay, so the big difference is these are both Canadian National. They're the same paint scheme. They're obviously a different road number and everything else, but it's otherwise basically the same car. They're both the Multimax Gunderson cars, so everything should be identical as far as road specific details. So it's going to come down to simply the quality and the engineering put into these cars. And again, I want to thank everyone who's joined me tonight. This is my first time doing this, and I'm really excited to do this head to head. And we're going to start with a simple unboxing. So we're going to get these guys out of the way. Obviously, I've already got the Atlas out of the box, so we're going to set him over here on the side so he's out of the way and doesn't actually get damaged. Next, I'm just going to put down some of this blue paper towel. This will add some contrast to the color and help protect any details from getting damaged while inspecting the model. So this is your generic Scale Trains packaging. Very nice, very high quality. I notice a lot of manufacturers are going with the clear packaging now, and it's nice because you can kind of see all the way around without having to pull the model out. And you can inspect it for damage while you're at the hobby shop, and you don't have to cut the tape. Which there is tape on these guys here, so we're going to have to cut that off. You want to be careful when you're doing this. Sometimes if you have a dull blade, it can slip and you can cut yourself, and we don't want that. So please be safe when you're using scissors or knives or sharp objects. So before we open that up anymore though, we want to go over some of this. You've got 4 roller bearing caps, 4 spares that come with. These do come off from time to time. I'll be honest, I've never replaced one that I've had operating on the layout. I've had it a couple times after I've received a model that it's been missing, I've used them. But it's nice that Scale Trains includes those, because Athearn does not as far as I'm aware. Next, you've got your manual here. There's some information. I love that when manufacturers add info with the rolling stock about the rolling stock. So you've got all your information here, all the separately applied details, everything on here about the road name and road specific details, and then a parts summary and breakdown here. So if you break it, drop it, or if it comes damaged, you can order all the parts you need right out of here, just like a catalog. Scale Trains has excellent customer service. If you have any further questions beyond this, please feel free to contact them or message me. And one of the reasons I wanted to go live is I am taking questions along the way. So if I see something pop up on the screen, I'll say, hey, back, how's it going? And we can discuss anything that we're reviewing here. So we're just going to slide this off, move that cellophane back. And it's actually kind of a trip to try to figure out how you're going to pick this thing up out of the box, because there's just detail everywhere. It's nuts. And right off the bat, we can see there's a bit more detail to this than there is to the Atlas. Now, the Scale Trains, I believe, is actually a little bit less expensive than the Atlas cars are, at least as far as retail price goes. So I'm just going to tip this guy back and watch for any loose parts that might be coming out of here. It happens from time to time, just with shipping. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. We're going to tuck that back in, put our parts in there, close this up, and we're going to get this out of the way. So now I'm going to reset the camera, so hold on tight. It's going to get a little shaky here, and then we're going to dive right in. Okay, let's see if we can get this forward a little bit more. I apologize for all the last minute adjustments. This is the first time I've done a live YouTube video. I wasn't sure what camera it was going to use on my phone for this and how much zoom we were going to have. So we're going to gently pull this guy towards us here and go over some of the finer details. We're going to add a little bit of light. There we go, that's better. Alright. Now as we're looking over this beautiful model here, we can see all the different detail that's available. Let's get this a little bit closer here. In fact, we can go like this. So you can really get in there and see all the fine details, all the piping. Look at all that. That is just nuts. Going from end to end on the car. You can see some of the glue spots underneath. It's not as prevalent on the outside of the model. I'm sure this is something that just happens from time to time. There's no real way to control it sometimes in manufacturing. So if you can hide it well, this is a great opportunity to do it, is underneath the car. Now, one thing I do want to point out, if we compare the Scale Trains to the Atlas side by side, like so, you can immediately see some of the differences. So you can see the color is different, first of all. Next thing you'll notice is that these pipes and all the plumbing down here are painted. This is cast in color, okay? So while this still looks good, and you can see this is actually a different brake valve than this is, but all this is painted plastic. This is cast in color, this is painted. The trucks are pretty similar. You can actually see these are more solid bolsters. These are a little bit more cut out. Maybe a different design of the truck, but I believe these would be otherwise the same. This is again the Atlas model. This is the Scale Trains. And you can see some of the difference up here in the types of coupler systems that this has for holding the air hoses, the coupler box, etc. See some of the details for swinging the doors open here. Nothing on here for that. Not that we can see from the bottom. And then the same on the other end here. So you've also got these steps, or I believe these are steps here. You don't have that on this model. So, not being that familiar with Autoracks, I'm starting to see where the differences are in these models and likely the changes of the prototype. So, these are likely two different cars. I did not know that, so I apologize if anyone feels misled. So, now we're going to turn these on the side and check that out. Thanks, Nate, for watching. If you get some just because they're cool, that's totally fine. These things look great on a unit train going through, or just something to have passing through. Alright, so now we can start to see some of the differences on the side here with the logo. You can see the striping. These are darker stripes. These are lighter stripes. I'm not sure which one's more prototypical or if it is just two different shades or colors. But you can also see the coupler cut bar here and here are slightly two different styles and different colors. This one's obviously painted yellow for safety, and that one's just the body color of the car. Now you can see all the holes and perforations here. It's part of the design of the car. Same on this plate here. And then you can actually see that this is painted plastic, and I believe this is actual metal. You can actually see the difference pretty clearly from here. It might be a little difficult to catch on camera, but we're going to try to tilt it a little bit there. You can kind of see how this is more of a polished finish, and that's obviously painted. Or at least it looks painted. There's a little bit heavier marks here for what would be holding the panels on, and this one definitely looks a little bit more authentic. And then of course you've got all your writing on the side here. And it looks very nice and neat and crisp. And you can see that this is marked for a tri-level, that's marked for a bi-level. So it's another difference of the prototype than just being a model quality difference. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn these on their sides. I'm going to turn these long way. And we're going to take a look from the side here at the ends, or look from the side of the layout here at the ends of the model. So bear with me while I lower everything down just a little bit. And we'll go down just a little lower. I apologize for the abruptness, but I want to make sure we had a good view. And we'll raise this up just a little bit. There we go. All right. So we can see some of the end detail on these cars here. The quality of the lettering and whatnot. These are the factory couplers from the Atlas car. You can see the steps here. And these are the factory Scaletrains couplers. And they're a little bit longer sticking out from the car. If I bought some of these, I'd definitely swap it out for the semi-scale coupler. One thing I want to point out, where I believe Atlas actually has this better, is if you look at the end, and if you look at the rivets up here, they look kind of heavy. Like there's a lot of paint on this. Alright, and I believe on the Atlas, I think they just did a better job of covering those up. See if I can get the zoom a little better here. Maybe I need to back the camera up. Okay. So again, we're looking at the ends here at the rivets specifically. And I just feel like the plates and rivets on here are a little bit nicer than on the Scaletrains model. And then you can see here, this is painted, that's painted. And of course, you've got the air hoses. On this one, the trip pin is actually right down there. It's actually touching the air hose as it sits over it. I actually removed those from the air hoses from the Atlas models. They actually just pop out really nice. I just use a pair of needle nose pliers and pop them right out. It fits really well. Nate, you're absolutely right. The paint's a little bit thinner. It's not as prevalent on the Atlas model. On the Scaletrains, they do have thicker paint, it looks like. I do want to point out the silver on here is okay. It's not as crisp as maybe it could be, but it is very nice nonetheless, especially on the top here. But if you look on the black here, it looks like it had a little bit of seepage out of where it should have been, but I'm not going to hold that against them too much because you're getting really picky if this is what you're worried about. You've got the detail up here for the doors when they open up to help the door slide out. You got your levers and everything, levers and rods. And it may be difficult to make out, but it kind of looks like maybe this is some more cast and color stuff, but it does match the rest of the car better than the cast and color that's over on the Atlas model. Hi Ridson and Rome Model Railroad, how you doing tonight? So now I'm going to turn this to the side a little bit so we can kind of compare some of the grab irons and details side by side. See if we can get this to zoom in a little bit better here. Glad to hear it, Ridson, or Risden and Rome Railroad. I hope you're enjoying the video. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to ask me. I will show you anything on these cars. I actually own the Atlas car. I own 4 of them, and probably about 2 dozen Walthers. And this is a Canadian National Gunderson tri-level Autorack from Scale Trains that I have on loan from Hiawatha Hobbies, who has a plethora of these in stock. In case you can't find them anywhere else, feel free to give them a shout. Just visit www.hiawathahobbies.com and let them know Sean sent you. So we're going to start looking at some of the details on the side here. And I want to start out with the ladder here. This seems a little thick on the bottom. I'm not sure how prototypical that is, but maybe they're concerned about these breaking off a little bit easier and made the step a little bit thicker. But this is much thinner, and it curls underneath nicely to flow with the rest of the car. You can see the jacking points here. You can see some of the lettering underneath. Let me see if I can lower this a little bit and give you guys a better view. Keep this light from moving around a little bit, perhaps. Pull this in. Alright, so hopefully you guys are seeing this a little bit better than I can see it on my phone for this live video. I know it's a little sketchy on here. Now the next thing I want to show you are these perforations here in this panel, right here and right here. So they're, I'd say, about equal. They're just pinholes, and they look very sharp, they look very nice, they're very concise. The Atlas car, great question, Nate. The Atlas car does not have roller bearing caps, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment, and then we'll go over the detail of the trucks, because the Scale Trains has that easy. So, to finish this up here, again, we've got the rivets on the side. The rivets on the Scale Trains car, you can actually see 2 different sizes. You have the rivets right here. You have the rivets up here. They're a little bit smaller, and it's a little bit better defined. I feel like these are just kind of chunky. It's probably for the floor, but then on that car, that all around the rivets seem smaller and maybe a little more pronounced. So since Nate brought it up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the trucks. So once again, we'll adjust the camera height here so we can get a nice view from above. Don't mind the rest of the railroad. Again, I hope you guys can see this a little bit better than me. I do not have the best setup for this. We're going to turn these guys in on each other here so we can try to get a better view. Alright, actually have to go over just a little bit further. Center it. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this well. We're going to turn this down. Now, looking at the details for these trucks, hopefully the zoom is working good for you guys and you can make everything out. But down here, it'll actually say some information about the car. Looks like it says G or CTTX and the road number, which would be appropriate for the car number on the side. On the Atlas car, it has no information. I'd say that the Scale Trains is a little bit better defined. Naturally, You get your roller, working roller bearing trucks. Like that. And this one's not missing any of the caps that I've seen, if you've noticed it. I wouldn't hold it against them. That happens with this level of detail. Things break, things pop off. But thankfully, that's why they send that little packet of parts in with us. And again, you can see the detail along here. You can see the information for the wheels. You can see the pull bar, or the part here where you'd have your hook to move the cars if you didn't have a locomotive or a truck to move them. Little placards, all your information all along the side. I wouldn't say that one or the other is better as far as the lettering goes. I'd say, if anything, that the Scale Trains was a little bit better. If you've got better vision than me, you probably have a better idea of which one does look better. But for my sake, I say the Scale Trains is probably a little bit better. So I'm going to back this up now. We're going to set these up side by side on the track. We're going to see how they measure up on the layout. So we'll put the Atlas on first. And that one you can see moves very smoothly on its own. No issues. Okay. So the coupler height's like spot on. I mean, you can't get much better than this. We'll lower this down so you guys can see a little bit better. So these cars look really good together, actually. They complement each other quite nice. The yellow on the Scale Trains model to the right is actually a bit darker, but the door is lighter compared to the Atlas. So I don't know if that's just a paint between manufacturer difference or if that's a prototype difference. I know that Scale Trains tends to use true color. I don't see any markings on the box for that, so I don't know if that's the case for this particular model, but it does look very nice. I just heard something. It seems like the Scale Trains has a little bit more pop over some of the joints on the railroad. Cornell Custom Trains, as far as I know, Rivet Counter is the only line that Scale Trains is making right now for these cars. So if you want to go out and wait for the operator, which we talked about briefly towards the beginning of the video, I'm sure that's something that they'll come out with to help promote the brand and to give more people an opportunity to purchase. Now, these are my other new Autoracks. These are from Atlas. What I like about these is they don't have the drawbars that swing other than just a coupler. So these are great for switching out, and I'm glad that the Rivet Counter model has a similar style. I have not seen the operator models. If they do have them, that's awesome. I'm sure those are going to sell just as well. So if you're buying the Scale Trains model, I highly recommend it. I don't want to say that the Scale Trains is blatantly better than the Atlas. I think the Atlas is a great model, but for myself, someone who hasn't had very detailed models of Autoracks, I'm not sure that, yes, definitely, Rivet Counter are bust. But Atlas, I think overall is very nice, and we've already gone over the door details. I think that Atlas, I don't notice anything that they're missing. I do not have reference photos of the prototype to compare it. Yeah, so we've already gone over the sides and everything, but it is very clear the metal sides on the Scale Trains versus the Atlas. And yes, the Atlas are very good units. especially for the price. And now that the scale trains are out, I hope that they do well. I can see that this is a better model, and that I think they're going to be sold out again, no problem. But so far, they seem to operate just fine together, no issues, and they don't bang the details around. Although on the radius, I'm not sure what radius this is. I can hear the scale trains have some creaking. So I'm sure it's part of the detail parts moving around. Yes, the bearing caps do rotate on this model. We went over that just before you joined us. So I want to throw something in. Some people have a huge issue with this in their layout. I know a few operators who don't like to mix detail levels, but I'm going to put this Walthers Proto auto rack on here just for shoots and giggles. And you can see there's clearly a level of detailed separation here. First of all, you've got very different wheels, you got very different trucks, much less detail in the Walthers, especially if we go to look underneath or at the ends. There's a lot less. You don't have the coupler cut bars, you don't have the train line hoses, you don't have, the handles on the ends or any of that stuff. Yes, the Proto 2000 does have plastic sides on it as far as I'm aware. I know the older Walthers definitely do, and it was something that you could pop off. And while we're here, you know what? I'm just going to grab the paper towel again, and I want to compare all three side by side, and we can kind of take a peek at some of the differences here. Well, we already went over that in part of the video with the difference of color in the underbody. And you can see that the Atlas has cast-in color parts underneath here for the hoses and the piping. So everything that wasn't a piece of wire was cast in color and then glued underneath the car. Move that over a little bit here. We'll bring our scale trains over. Yeah, and these curves here, I'm not sure what these are. I'd say they're probably 24 plus inch curves. And I hear a little bit of noise coming from the scale trains car over that radius. So I'll raise the tripod up a little bit. And then move this back down a little bit here. So let's see here if we have enough room to set these towards the edge of the layout here. This is getting risky. So starting with closest to us is the Scale Trains model, then we have the Atlas model, then we have the Walthers Proto 2000 model. If I had more access to the stuff that I have around the basement without having to move everything around, I'd be happy to get an earlier Walthers model out. But for now, this is, I think, pretty good. But you can clearly see, where's my pen? Underneath here, these are all painted parts, and that they match up better with the body color. Whereas on the Atlas here, they're cast in color from the appearance, and it was a close match, but it's actually better matched to this stuff, which actually has, from the looks and this lighting, that these detail parts are actually darker than the body color of the Milwaukee Road Proto 2000 model. And obviously you can see you got different wheel sizes here. I believe these are 28s and that these are 33s. If you guys have any more questions right now, I'm probably going to start wrapping up this video here at any second. Just want to go over a couple more things here. Again, you don't have the lines going through over here. You just have some stuff along the bottom. You don't have any of the other details along the frame or on the coupler pocket like you do over here. This thing you don't have anything except for that big ugly plate. And eventually I'm going to put some styrene in there to keep this from moving and a longer coupler so they better operate with these models. No problem, Cornell Custom Trains. I'm happy to do this. This is a video made in partnership with Hiawatha Hobbies. If you're looking for any of these models, Atlas or scale trains, check out www.hiawathahobbies.com. As far as weight difference, I don't think there is much of a weight difference between any of the three. The Walthers has a fair bit of weight underneath. Atlas, I'd say, is a little bit heavier than the Walthers. I don't have a scale with me. And the scale trains, I'd say, is a little bit lighter than the Walthers, but I don't think it's going to cause any issues with operating. Nate, I think you're absolutely right. I believe that Walthers should make these in mainline. In fact, I have a video on my channel probably 2 years ago asking them to make it. I was running my Autorack train around a club layout and I said, Walthers, get on this. You guys need to make these. You have everything to do it. And they didn't. And now I fear they're going to miss out on a major comeback in the auto industry in model railroading. My issue with Intermountains is they're kind of, from the models that I've looked at, I'm not going to say this is for all of them, but from the models that I've seen for the Intermountain, they're very finicky. I don't know about the weight. They seemed kind of light to me, but they have. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have either. And they're even more money than the scale trains, as far as I'm aware. They're just too much money for what it was. But the scale trains, I think, is going to set the pace for Autoracks now. Atlas is close behind. They have another run coming out with Norfolk Southern, CSX, and Union Pacific. I probably plan on buying a couple of those, but I would like to put some of these on my layout as well. Being that they're tri-levels, gives you another perspective for running stuff on the railroad and for unloading. The only thing I would buy an Intermountain for is to have an unloading scene where I'm actively unloading cars or trucks from these haulers. So with that, that's probably going to be it. If you guys have any other questions, please hit me up right now. I will be cutting this video out in just another minute here. Yeah, Canada doesn't get the better end of the stick on much anything when it comes to model routing and stuff. Everything is more money. And as time goes by, these models are only going to get more expensive and harder to come by. By the time I'm done with the collecting, by the end of this year or early next year, I'll probably have 30 Autoracks altogether. Eventually, I'd like to have a larger scene for switching them out and operating them. I love my intermodal facility, so I'll really keep going with the facility with TOFC is the next thing I want to expand, and eventually I'll have an extension on this layout, hopefully, where I can add in a larger facility and there will be more switching based around intermodal. I think that'll keep things interesting. So. But that's it. This has been almost 34 minutes already. I hope you guys have enjoyed the comparison and the review. If you guys have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. I'll use it for my next video. If you guys liked the live video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know. Rusty, thanks for tuning in. I saw you jump in there at the end. H Trains, thank you so much. It's been a lot of work, but my next big issue is literally a hump. All the tabletops have warped. My mistake was going with Woodland Scenics modules. I will never use them again. I would not recommend them. And the reason I didn't go with foam is I'm not too familiar with working with foam, and I wanted a mostly level layout anyways. But if I did this again, I would use open grid benchwork and then make solid wood tops just like this. And I'd have more bracing, probably every 12 to 18 inches. And I would certainly use 1x4s. So this is all Homosote based underneath with 1/4 inch plywood on top, and this is AC plywood. This isn't the cheapest stuff. I went to Blifford Lumber and bought the best they had available. That was within my price range, and it was AC. So this side is A, the bottom side is C. So there's gonna be knots and stuff showing under there. But I have had some major issues with this. Even this bridge here is warped, so that's why it keeps wanting to pop up. But this does lift out. Feel free to join me on my Chicago, Milwaukee, and Northwestern Facebook page. I'd be happy to add any of you folks onto that, and you can see more layout progress. You can see more at the Autoracks, my operating with my intermodal facility, and hopefully soon some more layout wiring and getting some track laid. So thanks again for everyone joining me. We'll see you in the next video.